Hello, my name is Verrick and this is the third episode of the STEM journey to working to a professional dream job. I did want to just touch on a few things in my last episode. I do apologize for being a little long. My high school game career was a little eventful, to say the least. So I did want to go over a few things that I had happened in that one. I did want to point out that I did go through and I did try to trim it down to make it a little bit more smaller. So I wanted to keep it underneath an hour. I hope to keep this one underneath an hour as well. So I do appreciate to those that did listen to it. I did want to touch on that some of the things that I did could be done at a college level. For example, I talked about doing the job shadows that can still be done at a college level, of course, which I mentioned again at the middle school level. Even doing those mock interviews, I did at a high school level, but definitely easily can be done at a college level. And internships started at a high school level, but it was like I was a senior when I started. So again, definitely something you can do at a college level. Again, these are just something that I said when I started it, and then you guys can take it and kind of mold it into how you guys want to use it. So if you are a college student watching this, you can use that high school video and see it, and then kind of structure. Okay, so this is what he did. I'll do it this way as a college student and adapt it that way. And that's kind of how I wanted to design it. The reason why I'm just stating where I was at this point is why I maybe made some weird decisions of, oh, why is he doing this and this? But again, that's just so I can keep my mind on track with everything. And then just giving you an idea of where I was at in terms of the time periods in schooling. That's really the general idea, is that this is all like during school, this is what I was doing. During school, this is what I was doing. This one will be mostly focused on college. I'll be in college at this point, and then I'll just be touching base on that. And then at the end, I will go over just when I got a job and how that process went. Because little bit there, and that's why this one might take about as much time as the other one. Because I'm going to throw in a little bit of the when I got a job part. But again, I do think it's important to go through those things, and I just wanted to touch base on those. I would be happy to get feedback. This is, again, for anyone that just wanted to get a little bit more information based on what I did and wanted to do something similar to that. I think that's perfectly fine. And if you need any questions or anything like that, feel free to reach out to me through comments or anything, email, LinkedIn. All those would work perfectly fine. So yeah, with that, I'll get started here. So again, this one's going to be on when I get started in college. I went to college at NICC, Northeast Iowa Community College. I chose to go to that one. I was debating on, I think, Iowa State at the time. Both good colleges. In all fairness, there's a lot of good colleges available. It was just like which one was going to work best for me. And actually, one question I get a lot is does everyone need to go to college? And I think that's a really good question. And this might be a good thing to just note right off the bat. I don't think everyone needs to go to college. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I'm saying I don't think everyone needs to. A lot of people make that assumption. Even I did when I was growing up. A lot of my parents, both of them were like, yeah, our kid's going to college. And I was like a kindergartner. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to college. I just don't know what college is or what I'm supposed to do in there. So I mean, like, I grew up with this notation that, yeah, of course I'm going to college when a parent asked, or grandparent, or a friend. Like, all the way through high school, I always came up with like, oh yeah, I have to go to college, I have to figure that out. But I don't think it's necessarily something you have to do. My roommate, he didn't go to college. My siblings didn't all go to college. So it's just something similar to that nature, of where I don't think every person needs to go to college. That is also why I think I try to work with high schoolers and high school districts, so with the district itself, and trying to make sure that the high schools are able to prepare students for, if they don't go to college, that they get a lot of those like college experience classes, so like budgeting and that type of thing, ahead of time, because you don't get those if you don't go to college, and forcing you to go to college because you don't get those doesn't seem fair. The college experience giving you those examples of budgeting, how banking works, how a credit card works, some of those adult concepts. I think making sure that's brought to the high school level helps those students that decide I don't need college, I don't need over $300,000 of debt. Because that is something that you have to consider, is that you can get a lot of debt from going to college. I'm not saying that you shouldn't go to college. I just want to keep in mind that some people aren't going to go to college because they don't want to, or because it's not for them, and that's fine. I don't think you need to go to college if that's not the route you want to take. If you have a different route in mind, I think welding is a good example. I know a lot of great welders who really enjoy what they do, and I think they're doing a great job at it. They make really cool stuff, and they don't really need any college degree. They get like a certificate, and I think that's about it for what they need. And it's pretty impressive work. I know I couldn't do it. I don't know how, at least. So I mean, it's that type of stuff where sometimes college is needed and sometimes it's not. You just have to look into what you're going into in that specific STEM. A lot of STEM programs do require college, but some of them don't, and that's something you just have to look into when you're going into those courses, and when you're looking into what you want to do. So I just wanted to preface that before I continue on about my college career. So I went to go in to get a server and networking tech administration degree there. And so what that would entail is I would learn about Windows Server, networking equipment, and then how that all worked and interacted together. It was really fun. I really enjoyed my college experience. It was very interesting. One of my first classes was college experience, actually, now that I think about it. So it was getting in there, getting to know everybody, learning everyone's name, getting a good feel. And then after college experience, we got to know my instructors again. I did go beforehand to just get a good feel of everybody. And then we got to learn some of the basic networking stuff. How does a basic home router work? Basic routers are common for most households. So, I've used a router at my house before, so I kind of had a good idea of how this works. I've set them up before, but it was nice that we got to go through and do them. It's not anything like what an industrial router is like. And then we also got to do a little bit of the, building network cables and a little bit of the theory behind it. How does this all interact? We did get to touch on hubs. I don't know if anyone out there has ever worked with network equipment. So if you know what a hub is, those were pretty fun and interesting, and the reason why we don't use hubs. So that type of thing. We went over in one of my other classes. We went over the web design. So just the basics of building a website, HTML, CSS, those types of classes. Very good classes. Those were probably during those periods the hardest classes that we took. It was a little harder for other people than it was for me. I had a background already in coding, so I had a decent understanding because I took computer science. So it was a little bit more difficult. Luckily, our instructor gave us the ability to move ahead. She essentially really used the book, which I found in some classes they just didn't use the book at all, which if you're in college, you know that books are really expensive for whatever reason. And so she used the book a lot, so I was able to just, after I did her homework, go further ahead. Her homework was very long, so I would just spend like a long, full entire week just going through everything and then just continuing on that process. She had you'd go through the book, that section would take you like 3 hours of each chapter, and then after that chapter you had an additional section. She'd give you maybe a point or two on the actual homework assignment like that, and then the actual test portion was worth more, obviously. So that was a really good experience. The reason why that was important, though, is because that gave me the foundation for her next class that she taught, which I got in a later semester, which was computer programming and web design. So it was the programming part of it, which is where they went into PHP. And so that is where that part came into more focus. And then same with the networking class, was more basic networking. So him showing us just the basic roundabouts of networking. I do appreciate that they took the time of, here's just a little bit of it. We're not going to cram it all in you. Because when I was a high school student, I thought it was going to be, we're not going to be concerned about you not knowing anything. We're just going to give it to you and hope that you can, throw you in the deep end and hopefully you can swim type thing. So I was very excited that it wasn't like that. I don't know why I thought that. It's just when I was in high school, my thought was I have to do as much as possible when I go into college. Otherwise, I don't know if I can make it. That was kind of just my fear, I guess. Luckily, I was wrong. They do a great job where I went to college of, okay, let's just take a breather and we'll gradually move you up and teach you the things that you need to know to succeed. And I was really appreciative of that. And that was really great. Unfortunately, halfway through my college, we got hit with COVID. And that really screwed up a lot of things, not just for me, for like everybody. It probably ruined tons of things for our college and people that were taking other classes, not just for STEM, but just in general in my college. And we kind of had to switch everything to online. I was happy that they at least, were willing to switch things to online. So that was nice. I was able to continue my education. They didn't just like, we're closing down, you'll have to come back. So I was able to continue it on. Luckily, because of what my degree was in, and because of what I was doing, most of my homework, most of my assignments, we were already kind of mostly online anyway. I normally went to school bringing my computer to work on my computer. We would remote into our servers. We would do server maintenance remotely, mostly because in the real world, that's what most people do. We would do hardware maintenance as well. So we couldn't do that, but luckily we did a lot of that beforehand, ironically, because that was like the first chapters was, how do we do hard drives? Just kind of doing the hardware before we actually got to the software. So it did end up working out for us in that way. But it was interesting that we did run into these issues. So COVID unfortunately happened, and that really screwed up a lot of things. Our class got a lot smaller, obviously because of COVID. So we moved all on to Zoom, is what we were using as our platform. And so we had a lot more smaller class. I want to say it was probably like 12 or 14 at most in total that was in my program after that, after we got hit with COVID. We had a lot more, but after COVID, we went down a lot of people, understandably, of course, because I think COVID affected a lot of families from probably both a financial and just from a life standpoint. So again, I totally understand that. But luckily, it's just kind of how it folded, unfortunately. So we were able to at least still get classes in. It was virtual this time. I do think you do lose a little bit of something when you move to a virtual. I wasn't able to see people physically. I am a big I like being here physically. I like talking to people physically. I like having those physical interactions. Ironic considering I'm having a virtual interaction right now. But I do like having those physical interactions with people because I think it's very important. I think you get a lot more out of it with a physical interaction. But I wanted to continue my education still, so I was definitely happy to give it a try. We used a lot of our different testing systems that we didn't use before. Some of our tests used to be hands-on, and they had to transfer into just basic tests. And I did feel like we lost a little bit off of that. Wasn't a huge fan, but our instructors were understanding on that because I think you learn a lot more hands-on than you do off. Like through a test, I think there's a lot more to be gained when you're going through opening up a server, troubleshooting the server, and working on it from that perspective. Because in the real world, that is what you're doing. You're not, oh, this is happening, check which one you think is right, or circle the answer you think is right on a piece of paper. You might do that after you did the hard work part, but you're not doing that in real life. There's no piece of paper that's asking you these questions. You have to go through and look at it physically, and those things really make a difference, or communicate to a person when you're asking those follow-up questions. You can't really do that with a test. So those types of things I think were really important. But I would definitely say I definitely had a little bit more of a harder time in some of my classes because of that difference in transition. And of course, I don't think I was the only one. I did try my hardest though, and I still was able to maintain decent grades, at least between those times. But what I would recommend, because I know a lot of people ran into those issues, I've talked to a lot of students who said, I was a junior during COVID, and it really screwed up my trajectory to going into high school to a college. That really messed up everything from going from high school to college, and I completely understand. And I think hopefully a lot of people, when they're in college, anyone that's in the higher end of college will understand that and try to work with you on that. And I do hope that when you were in COVID that, you took advantage of that time and tried to look a little bit more into it from a YouTube standpoint. I tried to watch more videos. I think I I often would just get up at 6, work on my homework until like 5. So I was actually probably doing homework until like for like 12 hours, which is kind of odd to think about at this point, but probably most college students would be like, oh yeah, it sounds about right. And that's kind of just how it was for us because we wanted to make sure we got our homework done on time. And it was easy during COVID to just kind of get out of everything because it felt weird not leaving the house. And then obviously my internship kind of got a little shaky. I had to leave for a little while, and then they did bring me back later on. So it was just a whole bunch of that awkward, COVID fatigue. And I think a lot of people ran into that. And it wasn't just me, and it wasn't just like people at my school. A lot of people in a lot of schools had a lot of issues. I was just very happy that we were able to at least continue our education. And eventually, towards the end of my college career, so like the last semester, we were able to finally come back together, which was nice. I was happy that we were at least able to do that. It made it a little bit better. I was able to re-see everybody that I was, on a Zoom call essentially every day with. And I was able to get a better understanding of how things were going with them, making sure they were, feeling better, feeling healthy, making sure they didn't have COVID, of course. And then we were able to get back together, making sure we were able to get that hardware and kind of getting back to the idea that we were back together. Of course, we always had masks, so we had to wipe down our stations every time because we were using labs. But it was good. At least we were able to get back together to some point. At my school, the last semester, we have what we call a seminar project, which I was happy that we were able to do because from my understanding, when I was talking to my instructor the previous year, or the last 2 years, they weren't able to do it due to COVID, which was very unfortunate. And I felt very bad. It made it very difficult for the students to try to get out there with the other businesses. That class makes a huge difference. So what our seminar class typically included is our instructor would be like, okay, I'm going to be mostly hands off. I can help on a couple issues if you're having any. But the idea is that you're going to build an entire system on a server. You're going to build, working printers, working phones, working computers, desktops that all work interconnected together. And then you're going to present this to actual businesses. And this was really on the brink of when COVID was kind of coming back down. So it wasn't an ideal situation. But what we also wanted to do is make it possible for people to not come but still see everything. So what we did is we worked with some of the other instructors, and we were able to manage a Zoom call that would go through, and each person in our class, because what they normally did in the past is they had multiple groups going on, but because of how small our class was, we actually just had a group of one, which I think made it easier in the end, honestly. We just had laptops in each station, and then we would go through and present that. So what we would go then, after we got the logistics of that figured out, we went through and started building the infrastructure of our entire network, making sure everything worked on that end, and then keep going through on the servers. And we all had kind of separate jobs. We worked together really well because when you're going through a whole entire year together through Zoom calls, we created Discord and making sure we were able to be well communicated. It worked out really well for us because we were just all really well known together. We worked together already for a while. I guess it was just kind of like, that core people that worked in your niche, that specific area. You kind of already know what you guys all like, and you know how you guys can work well together. I was able to kind of get into that directorial position. I was able to help with everybody and help kind of manage where they're going. I tried to not do everything. Because I think one thing that a lot of times can happen in some directorial positions, depending on what type of director you are and how big your business is they'll try to do everything or put their hand everywhere and kind of work on every single thing and not let the people that know what they're doing do it. I had great faith in all the people that I worked with, so I knew that they could do it. And I would more or less just be like, hey, let's make sure we get this done, this done. I'd give them like time schedules, a calendar and all that, try and organize it because I knew I could do it. So I wanted to just do those types of things. And then if they ever had trouble, I told them, just let me know. I'd be happy to come over and just take a look at it and point you in the right direction. And that's really what happened. It was a really great way for us to work together. And then I would just, work with another person here, work with another person here, make sure they were going off. Because at the end of the day, what made that class, specifically that seminar project awesome, is that I don't think one person did it all, and I don't think one person didn't do anything. And that's what made it really special. It was we were all able to work together as a great team. Like if I could, I would take all the people from that group, put them in an IT department, and we would just run away and work on that IT department for our company because it was able to work so functionally well. And that's kind of what you want in a business, is an IT department that melds well together. So that was kind of a really amazing class that we got to do. One other thing that we got to do with one of our other instructors, it wasn't the same instructor, we went through and we got to check in with a business. This was remotely because of COVID, of course. And we looked through their infrastructure, looked through their job infrastructure, and we made a couple suggestions to them. We noticed this was a little shaky. We wanted to make these suggestions to change. We would, take some time, talk to our partners in the class and go through. This was in like a group of 3 or so, and we would work with this business partner within the community. It was like these types of interactions with the business that really made things interesting. And what I would like to note is, if there's any colleges listening in or anything like that, I would highly recommend looking into these type of concepts. If they haven't been doing them, I would recommend doing something where you can reach out to these companies and making that a part of your curriculum. It's really, really beneficial because it creates that established, oh, I know you. You were doing this project with my company not that long ago, and you made this awesome suggestion that we didn't notice, and then we implemented it. Because during these sessions, we had several people that were like, "Oh, that was a good point. You said this, and now they're using these implementations that we suggested," which I think is really awesome. So we did stuff like that as well in one of these classes, and it's just these types of interactions, these getting out there, working with the businesses in the community, getting that actual experience that I really enjoyed about where I went to school. And though it was a little unfortunate that we weren't able to physically see them or physically work with them, doing it virtually was at least a good consolation prize. So those types of classes made it a lot better. And then we also got to do a lot more. It wasn't so much from after we got done with the web programming class, we were able to move forward onto doing more like SQL and how all that interacted. That was kind of the leading up towards, which was really great. We used Access and SQL. Access was just more of like a fresher of this is what this is, and then SQL was actually what's used a lot in our profession. So that was really neat for us to be able to do. And that's really the point. It was, even though COVID happened, we were able to still kind of come together and make our way forward. I honestly think that it's definitely understandable that a lot of people were unfortunately unable to join us on that, because again, our class did get really small after COVID, or during COVID rather. And I do feel so bad about it, because a lot of the people that we were working with were so smart and so amazing. And I think just COVID kind of messed that up for them. And I do hope that they were able to go back to school or able to succeed somewhere else, because they were all brilliant people. And I hope everyone else that might have gotten messed up there were able to succeed somewhere else as well. And that's kind of another reason why I'm doing these videos, to also give like alternative options for them as well. Because honestly, in COVID happened, coming back, a lot of different things have happened since then. Because this video is obviously during 2022. So now that things are starting to open up, we have a lot more influx in openings. I know where I work, we have an opening that we've had open for a very long time. So I'd be happy to let you know that if you ever need a position, there's probably a lot out there, especially in the STEM area. I know there's a lot of nursing positions. There's a lot of engineering positions now. There's a lot more movement and circulation in these types of positions. And I would highly recommend, if you're, COVID hit, so you weren't able to complete college, and so you had to duck out for financial reasons or whatever, you were able to go back into college and maybe complete that, and then able to get into one of these great positions that are available right now, because there's so many of them out there right now. And they do pay very well too, so it really helps you out from that financial standpoint. And I do hope that helps. And these types of jobs are really, really amazing. I mean, I had so much fun in the position that I was able to get in, and I'll get into how I got there. So one of the ways that after I got towards the end of my college career, I was able to, after that, eventually graduate here. And towards that point when I was graduating, towards the end of the classes, I started looking into jobs, and there's not much that I was given on like, this is how you go in and find a job, right? So I went in and I kind of just applied to several different jobs. I talked to a lot of people that already had jobs, more or less, people in my at Grand River Medical Group where I worked at, and they simply suggested, just apply to as many places as you want, and just wait until you hear back, because that's kind of how it worked. I mean, as a student, they don't really go over, oh, this is how you apply for a big business job, and then this is where you want to do this. Those are more or less things that you'd have to go out looking for, and I didn't know that at the time, because again, it was just right during COVID. So when I wanted to get a job, it was like 2020. And I was like, it's COVID. We had to wear masks. And it was a very awkward time period to go get a job. So essentially, I just submitted a job application to places, and I was just waiting to see if I would get anything. And I did get a couple responses back, which I was very happy about. And I simply went through and I just did a whole bunch of interviews with a whole bunch of different companies. And what I really think was amazing is every time I did an interview, I always felt like I left with something a little bit more. So whether or not I was going to get a position there or whether or not they wanted me, I felt like, you know what, I was able to get a practice run with this company, whether they were going to hire me or not, right? So honestly, just going through and doing a job interview is a great experience. I think I mentioned this a little bit in the high school video episode 2. So I think just going through and doing several job applications is a great idea. Now, I do also recommend doing mock interviews as well. I did do a couple of those before I went into doing these job interviews, and I felt very confident, very comfortable when I went into them. And even after that, I still felt like I learned more after leaving them, because I don't think there's anyone that knows everything about an interview and can easily say that they've completed the whole curriculum on interviews. But I definitely felt like I learned a lot more after every single interview that I completed, and it was a great experience for me. Just getting that connections. That was the other thing. Like I was able to find another connection with another person at another company. It was like, oh, I know who you are now. I was able to get this understanding of what you're looking for, what your company needs. I have a high respect for your company. I think what you guys are doing is great. These types of interactions really helped me establish my understanding of what they needed and what I could do to provide that. And I think that's really important. So what I would recommend, this might be a note here for you, is just do some more do that job hunting, get some of those mock interviews, and then go get those interviews with the actual businesses. And whether or not you get it or not, don't be bummed or anything like that. It's understandable. And also don't be deterred if they maybe don't accept you on that job. Maybe if they have a different job that opens, and go apply for that one, because I honestly don't think they hold that many grudges against you. Most times it's like, oh, well, we had this one and this one just made more sense for this position. Sometimes that happens. I really think you would be perfectly fine of trying for this position. They gave this guy the position, and then there was this position that opened that maybe made more sense for your position anyway. So just go and apply for that one. Worst case scenario, they just don't give you the interview or something like that. There's so many businesses out there that you can go and apply for. Alternatively, there's also businesses that aren't even in your community that you can apply for. So if you wanted to, you can always go out there. I normally recommend applying for businesses in your community, because you normally have that the fact that you've already worked with your community a lot. So they're like, oh, you're in the community, you don't want to drive out or anything like that. It just works better for you in that favor. But you can go outside of the community if you need to. But that's probably my biggest recommendation when you're going in looking for a job or working on a job interview. That's really one of the big things, and that's kind of where making your when you're going into that job and you're trying to go through all that type of stuff. It's very important that you're confident, you feel very relaxed, or a little less on edge. Because my first interview, like I mentioned in the high school video episode 2, I was a little nervous. So just making that confidence check, making sure you feel comfortable, and then go in there and make sure you're having a basic conversation. Some people have different interviewing ideologies. So some people, I think one of my students said that his interviewer came in with shorts and a t-shirt, and he just sat down and went through some basic questions and then just had a basic conversation with them. And another one had like 4 people that were interviewing from different sides. So it's just the differences of the interviewing process. One thing I did want to note was the resume portion as well. We didn't really go through much other than in college experience, the building a resume, and I don't think they did a brilliant job of it. And part of that might have just been the instructor. But I would go through, build a resume, and then rebuild it and rebuild it, because a resume is typically a living document, meaning that you would add stuff as you would do certain tasks or get your degree and certificates or whatever you have to add to that. So I kept building onto mine. I would highly start that probably at the beginning of your college career, and then just keep adding on when you have more and more information to add on to it. Honestly, make sure it doesn't have to be like extravagantly huge or anything like that, but make sure it's basic and understanding. You don't want to make it too complicated. I talked to a lot of directors about it, people that I've submitted them, and people that I have, and just random directors that work in IT. And what they normally say is when they're looking for a person in that field, what they're looking for is that you have the proper credentials and that they think you can do your job, because that's what they really want. They want somebody that can do the job. So if you have what you need to do the job, that's what they're looking for in the resume, and that you don't have any spelling errors, or it looks like it's been properly created. So doing those types of things is what they're looking for. So as long as you follow those criteria, then they'll put you off to the side and probably give you a call and do an interview, because the resume is supposed to create that, okay, this person can do the job, they're decently well organized, they can set up everything. And the interview is, how does this person actually work in an actual work setting? In the example of like working on a help desk, how are they going to react on taking calls? If it's a nurse, is she able to communicate well with the patient? These types of interactions. I think that's really the big point of like that resume to interview. The resume's point is to get you the interview, and the interview is you trying to sell yourself to the interviewer and why you are the best choice among the other people that they're interviewing. And that's really the whole process there. So the job that I ended up getting, I was able to get. I had two people that were offering me jobs at the time. It was I think it was I don't remember the other one. I think it was DePaco, and then I ended up taking NICC. And the reason why is because I really strongly believe in education, and I really wanted to work for them, but I had really a lot of respect for DePaco and what they do. They do a lot for the community, so it really was a tough decision for me. But I really think both of these options were really decent, and I did have a hard time figuring out which one I wanted to go with. But having multiple decisions, and this was something I actually had to learn later on, because as a kid I didn't really understand. I guess I was an adult at that time, but I don't know. It was a tough decision. So I asked a lot of people that worked in the industry, and asked, how do you handle these things? I asked some instructors, if you were given an option of two jobs and you wanted one over the other, is that okay? And how would I go about it? And what's the best way to explain it? Because one of my things I would suggest, taking note for, is it's okay to ask questions. I don't think anyone's going to fault you for it. This is a job. The people on both sides are probably understanding when it's like, oh, they got a better offer, or oh, they have a different job they wanted to do. It happens a lot. So I mean, I completely understand. I was in a same type of spot where it's like I had two jobs and I didn't know which one I wanted to do, or I did know which one I wanted to do, and it was hard for me to figure out how do I explain that to one of them. I'm just one of those people that hates causing conflict, right? I like de-escalating, that type of thing. So making sure you go through that process, and talking to people is always okay. It's something I do want you guys to just take note of. It's an okay thing to do, and asking for second opinions of things is also not a bad thing. Because that's what I did. I was like, this is why, weighing your opinions, the why I would take this over this, and why I would take this over this, the charting. I often did that, and that helped me come up to which conclusion I wanted to do with. Both companies are brilliant, but I just went with this one for that simple reason. So I think that's very important when you do send out your resume to multiple companies, and you're in a position where you're like, oh, I like both companies, just try and weigh your options and ask other people's opinions. Preferably maybe friends and family, but something like that, people in the industry, and see, this is what I want to do, and see how that would help your where you want to be. Maybe it's not a position that you plan to be in and you wanted to move up, see how you can move yourself up in that position. So for an example, if you're starting in help desk, is there a line for you to go from help desk to network admin to service admin, or wherever you want to go? So just, making sure you have those things already thinking of when you're taking those positions. And that's something you have to keep in mind when you're going from college to a job. So that's really what I wanted to talk about in this episode. This one's probably going to be the last one of this series. I do think I might talk about other things, like might talk about some parts of the job of like an IT specifics, like security, help desk, stuff like that. I'm not sure yet on that, so that could happen there. Stay tuned to. But I really wanted to just go over what I did in my middle school, high school, and college career, and then how I got a job, just to help people. I get this question a lot, so I wanted to make sure I had a video to point to. Feel free to ask me questions. I often do job shadows. I do interviews with people, mock interviews specifically, and then I often do speeches and several other things like that. So please feel free to let me know if you have any questions. I'd be happy to help you out. If you have any questions, please leave comments or anything like that on the video. Thank you so much and have a good rest of your day. Bye.